The decision arrived without ceremony, yet its impact struck the palace like a bell through an empty cathedral. Diana's sapphire earrings, among the most charged jewels linked to the late princess, had officially been reserved for Princess Charlotte. Not for Camilla's relatives. Not for a private family collection. Charlotte. The name landed with force because this was never only about jewelry. It was about memory, blood, and who would carry Diana's legacy forward. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Buckingham Palace confirmed the decision through an internal statement sent first to senior royal households. Buckingham Palace is the monarch's official residence and the center of royal administration, so any message issued from there carries weight. The statement made one point clear: the earrings would eventually pass to Charlotte, while Camilla's family would hold no future claim, custodial role, or ceremonial access. Catherine read the paper beside William in a private morning room and stopped when she reached her daughter's name. She pressed 2 fingers against the page, read the line again, and struggled to steady her breathing. The Princess of Wales understood why the moment mattered. Charlotte had never met Diana, yet these sapphires would give the girl a direct link to the grandmother, whose memory still shaped William's life. William said nothing at first. He watched his wife absorb the news, then placed one hand beside hers. The prince knew the decision protected more than an object. For years, questions had surrounded who should control Diana's symbols, and he had become determined that his mother's story would not be folded into another household's image. Camilla received the statement minutes before its public release. She lowered her cup too quickly, and the spoon struck the saucer with a sharp crack. The queen consort asked why her office had not been consulted, then read the attached clause in silence. A custodial arrangement is a formal plan deciding who protects and controls an item. This one prevented the earrings from being loaned, reassigned, or displayed without approval from Charlotte's guardians and, later, Charlotte herself. Charles faced the final page alone. He paused at Diana's name, closed the folder, and gave permission for publication. The king knew that one signature would protect his granddaughter, but he also knew it could reopen wounds his family had never fully healed. Camilla moved first. She requested an immediate meeting, not with the press office, but with William. The earrings had been assigned, yet behind closed palace doors, the people connected to them were only beginning to reveal what they believed they were owed. To the outside world, they were sapphire earrings framed by diamonds. Inside the royal family, they carried grief, memory, rivalry, and a name that still possessed extraordinary power. Charlotte stood at the center of the decision, yet she was too young to understand the full weight placed upon her. Catherine understood it. Camilla feared it. Behind both women stood Diana, whose absence still shaped the monarchy more forcefully than many living members ever could. Catherine found Charlotte bent over her schoolwork later that afternoon. She sat beside her without mentioning the conflict, watching the child erase one answer and begin again. The Princess of Wales was not receiving ownership of the earrings. She was becoming their guardian, meaning she would protect them until her daughter reached the right age and could understand the responsibility attached to them. Charlotte looked up and asked why her mother seemed sad. Catherine smiled, brushed the question aside, and helped her finish the page. Yet the moment cut deeply. Adults were already placing history, expectation, and public meaning upon a girl who had never met the grandmother whose name now followed her through palace corridors. William spoke to Charlotte that evening with careful restraint. He told her that something important belonging to Granny Diana would one day be kept safe for her. The prince watched curiosity brighten his daughter's face, then turned toward the window before continuing. He needed her to hear love in the story, not conflict. Camilla felt something very different. She did not want to wear the earrings, nor had her children ever owned them. What wounded the queen consort was the public message that her household stood outside the monarchy's deepest emotional history. Diana's bloodline had been protected in a way marriage, rank, and years of service could never equal. Charles understood both sides and found no safe ground between them. The king wanted his son to preserve his mother's legacy, because William had carried that grief since childhood. Yet he also knew Camilla heard the announcement as proof that public affection could never be secured by title alone. A senior courtier later explained in a documented internal account that discussions had taken place about displaying selected historic jewels at a charitable exhibition linked to Camilla's wider household. The family had no legal claim, but even temporary stewardship would have allowed another office to shape how the sapphires were presented. Camilla finally faced Charles and said the statement had made her look like an intruder inside her own family. He opened his mouth, then stopped before either could look away. That silence had begun months earlier, during one carefully planned royal ceremony that went disastrously wrong. The decision over Diana's earrings had not appeared from nowhere. Its origins reached back to one winter evening at Windsor, when a private presentation of royal jewels became a confrontation no official record was meant to preserve. One display case, one unexpected name card, and one sharp exchange changed the future of the sapphires forever. Those who witnessed it later understood the palace announcement was not impulsive. It was the final answer to an earlier warning. Catherine entered the final preview, expecting a quiet inspection before guests arrived. The Windsor Castle exhibition, a display inside one of the monarch's principal residences, had been planned for patrons, historians, and charitable supporters. Diana's earrings were meant to stand at its center because they carried more public emotion than any other item in the room. Catherine stopped when she read the card beneath them. It described the sapphires as part of the continuing royal household, under the ceremonial oversight of Camilla's office, yet it mentioned neither Charlotte nor Diana's descendants. The Princess of Wales removed the card, crossed the gallery, and placed it before the Queen Consort. Camilla read the wording without flinching. She called it administrative, and argued that jewels connected to the crown could not remain trapped inside old family divisions. The Queen insisted the exhibition was about continuity, not ownership. Her answer only hardened Catherine's resolve, because the language did more than organize a display. It shifted the emotional center of Diana's legacy. William arrived midway through the exchange and took the card from the table. The prince read it once, folded it, then said his mother's belongings would not be rewritten for convenience. Camilla answered that no one was rewriting anything. He replied that removing Charlotte from the story was a form of rewriting. Charles received a documented briefing later that evening. The king listened without interrupting, then canceled the earrings from the exhibition rather than force a confrontation. Their empty place at the center confused the staff, but his silence told William the problem was larger than one card. William moved the next morning. He ordered legal advisors to examine every custodial record linked to Diana's jewels. A custodial record is the chain showing who may hold, loan, or display an item. The review uncovered vague wording that could allow future ceremonial loans without consulting Charlotte's household. Catherine and William reached the same conclusion. Symbolic protection was no longer enough. Charlotte's name had to appear so clearly that no future office could reinterpret the earrings. The Windsor incident created the legal mission. But when Camilla finally faced William after the public announcement, legal language gave way to something rawer and far more dangerous. The meeting began with neither side willing to sit. William entered knowing what Camilla wanted reversed. She waited beside the fireplace, determined not to appear wounded. No private secretary stood between them. No advisor softened their words. For the first time since the announcement, the conflict over Diana's sapphires became what it had always been beneath the official statements. A struggle over memory, legitimacy, and who held the right to define the royal family's emotional inheritance. William closed the door himself. The sitting room felt tighter, stripped of the aides who absorbed tension before it reached the people at the center. A private secretary is the senior aide who manages a royal figure's work and communications, but Camilla had insisted that none attend. She wanted no witness. He understood why. Camilla spoke first. She said she had never asked to own the earrings, wear them, or take them from Charlotte. What she opposed was the wording. By naming her family as excluded, the palace had turned a custodial decision into public humiliation. William did not move. He answered that the wording had to be exact because previous discussions treated the sapphires like flexible royal assets. The prince reminded her that vague language appeared at Windsor, and ambiguity would not be allowed to return under another name. Camilla asked whether he believed she had tried to erase Diana. Her voice remained controlled, but the question carried years of strain. He paused before replying. Intention mattered less, he said, than what the display would have told Charlotte when she was old enough to understand it. Camilla's composure broke. She pushed a chair aside and accused William of placing his daughter between them like a shield. The Queen Consort said he had transformed one family heirloom into a judgment against every person connected to her. William refused to raise his voice. He said Charlotte was not a weapon. She was Diana's granddaughter, and direct family continuity should never have required a fight. Camilla then asked the question she had avoided. Had Charles supported the wording? William answered yes. The king had personally approved the final statement. Camilla went still. The decision had not come only from the Wales household. Her husband had chosen not to weaken it, even knowing how she would receive it. William opened the door, but she stopped him with a final question. Would her family ever have a place inside the monarchy's emotional history? He looked back and answered quietly. Some histories could not be inherited through marriage. William had defended the decision, but the power to make it permanent rested elsewhere, inside a sealed legal structure carrying the king's approval and one unexpected safeguard. Behind the confrontation lay a document more decisive than any spoken argument. It did not depend on sentiment, popularity, or promises. It named the earrings, identified their future custodian, and closed the path through which another household might claim control. Charles had signed it in silence. William had demanded precision. Catherine had insisted on one protection. When the last clause surfaced, Camilla understood that the decision had been built to survive every future change. Charles sat alone with the final papers before him. The document was a private custodial instrument, meaning a formal legal arrangement that separated Diana's sapphire earrings from jewels used for exhibitions, state occasions, or household loans. The king ran his thumb across the signature line, then looked toward the advisor waiting opposite him. Charles asked whether the wording could be seen as a rejection of Camilla. The legal advisor answered carefully. It rejected no person, he said. It established direct descent, removed uncertainty, and protected the earrings from being absorbed into another royal office. The monarch lowered his eyes because the answer was legally clean but emotionally brutal. Charlotte's name appeared as the eventual custodian. Catherine and William were listed as joint protectors until their daughter reached the age and position set out in the arrangement. The princess had also insisted that Charlotte could not wear the earrings without family agreement and historical guidance. She wanted the girl to understand Diana before the sapphires became a public symbol. William had shaped the opening paragraph himself. The prince demanded that his mother's name appear immediately, not in an archival note buried at the end. That choice mattered because it made Diana the center of the transfer rather than a footnote to palace property. Catherine had pressed for the final safeguard after Windsor. The confidential schedule, an attached section containing restricted conditions, stated that no spouse, step relative, outside foundation, or separate royal household could borrow or exhibit the earrings without written approval from Charlotte's guardians. Her fear was not that Camilla would wear them. It was that another office might slowly change their meaning through exhibitions, speeches, and ceremonial branding. Charles signed. The advisor witnessed the page, gathered the copies, and left. The king remained seated after the door closed, knowing he had protected his granddaughter while deepening the wound inside his marriage. Camilla received a formal summary. She read it twice and understood the trap. Appealing to Charles would reopen the legal process and make her appear to challenge Charlotte's inheritance directly. The legal battle was over before most of the family knew it had begun, but its emotional consequences spread through both households, and one reaction would stun even the king. Once the document became irreversible, anger gave way to something quieter and more painful. Doors closed. Calls went unanswered. Staff members lowered their voices whenever Diana's name appeared on a briefing page. Camilla had expected resistance from William, but she had not expected Charles to remain firm after witnessing her humiliation. Now, inside her own household, the queen consort faced a truth rank could not soften. Palaces could open their doors while certain family legacies remained permanently beyond reach. Camilla returned to her private rooms and dismissed her staff early. She removed her glasses, placed the custodial summary on a side table, and left it unopened. A custodial summary is a formal account explaining who may protect, control, or loan a treasured item. She already knew what it said. The silence outside made the rejection feel more personal. Camilla did not rage. She sat in disbelief. The queen had assumed Charles would preserve Charlotte's inheritance but soften the public wording. Instead, he had protected both the legal decision and the sentence excluding her family. A close relative called afterward and asked whether Camilla's children were being pushed outside the royal circle. She answered that they had never wanted Diana's possessions. Her voice tightened on the final word, revealing that the pain was not about ownership. It was about being publicly marked as separate. Charles entered without aides later that evening. The king said protecting Charlotte did not reduce his wife's position, but Camilla asked why the statement needed to name her family at all. He admitted William had demanded complete clarity after Windsor. Another compromise, he said, would only delay the same fight. Camilla looked at him and said the monarchy had again chosen Diana's memory over the dignity of the living. Charles answered that those two things should never have become rivals. Yet he could not deny what the sapphires meant to his sons, or what losing control of that meaning would do to William. Catherine reacted differently. She placed the original confirmation inside a private family archive, a secure collection used to preserve important household records, and refused to celebrate. The princess saw protection, not victory. William gave the same order to his communications team. The prince banned triumphant language, because any public celebration would deepen the split with Charles and turn Charlotte into the symbol of an adult feud. Camilla made the final move. She withdrew from the upcoming jewelry exhibition committee. When Charles read her note, he understood the decision had altered more than one inheritance. It had damaged trust inside his marriage. The palace seemed divided beyond repair until Catherine crossed a corridor and asked to speak with Camilla alone. No secretary arranged the meeting. No formal request passed between offices. Catherine simply crossed the private corridor after evening duties and asked whether Camilla would see her. The decision startled both households. One woman had protected her daughter. The other believed her family had been publicly rejected. Between them stood Diana's memory, powerful enough to reopen old wounds but also strong enough to demand honesty. What followed did not reverse the inheritance. It changed the meaning of the victory. Catherine entered alone and declined the chair offered to her. She said she had not come as the Princess of Wales, the title carried by the wife of the heir to the throne. She had come as Charlotte's mother, responsible for explaining one day why the earrings had caused so much pain. Camilla remained guarded. The queen consort asked whether the visit was meant to make the announcement seem compassionate after the damage had already been done. Her voice stayed level, but the hurt beneath it was unmistakable. Catherine did not defend every word. She admitted the statement had been severe. William, she explained, believed softer language would allow the same uncertainty to return years later, when Charlotte might still be too young to defend Diana's legacy herself. Catherine then revealed her deepest fear through a private conversation recorded afterward in her household notes. The princess worried that Charlotte would grow up believing she had to choose between honoring her grandmother and keeping peace with the rest of the family. Camilla's expression changed. She had seen the decision as a weapon aimed at her household. Now Catherine described it as an attempt to stop a child from inheriting resentment created long before her birth. Catherine reached into her handbag and removed a small photograph of Diana wearing the sapphire earrings. She placed it on the table but did not push it forward. The silence between them carried everything neither woman could safely say. Camilla studied the image. She admitted the jewels could never hold the same meaning for her children. The queen still opposed the public exclusion, but she accepted that Charlotte was their rightful emotional heir. Catherine promised her daughter would never be taught that the earrings proved one woman had defeated another. They would represent Diana, family continuity, and the duty to carry memory without cruelty. Camilla offered no apology for Windsor. She did, however, agree not to challenge the custodial arrangement, removing the last personal threat to the decision. The private truce remained hidden, but outside the palace gates, the announcement had already become a national spectacle, and one image captured the public mood more powerfully than any official statement ever possibly could. By sunrise, the earrings were no longer a private family matter. They filled breakfast television, dominated newspaper stands, and drew people toward Kensington Palace. Some saw justice. Others saw a deliberate insult to Camilla. Yet one front page cut through every argument. A childhood photograph of Charlotte beside Diana wearing the sapphires, joined by a single blue line. In that instant, the country understood the inheritance emotionally before it understood it legally. A major morning newspaper carried the headline, "Diana's Blue Legacy." It placed Charlotte's portrait beside the famous earrings and framed the transfer as a bond between grandmother and granddaughter. Crown ownership means property held for the monarchy as an institution, rather than for one person. And broadcasters stressed that this decision kept the sapphires from disappearing into that wider system. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace before midday. The residence had once been closely linked to Diana, which gave the location deep emotional power. One woman placed blue flowers beside a photograph of the late princess, while parents stopped to explain why the earrings mattered to children too young to remember her. An elderly royal watcher gave the sentence that spread fastest. Speaking during a live television interview, she said, "They are going to her granddaughter. That is where the heart of the story belongs." Her words moved viewers because they reduced the legal battle to one simple human truth. Camilla's supporters pushed back almost immediately. They argued the palace could have honored Charlotte without naming another family as excluded. To them, the statement protected one legacy by creating a fresh humiliation. William watched the coverage in silence, and stiffened when commentators called the outcome his triumph over the queen consort. The prince ordered his office not to brief against her, knowing victory language would turn Charlotte into a weapon and deepen the fracture with Charles. Catherine felt the same danger. She was moved by the blue flowers, but she disliked seeing her daughter's face pulled into an adult dispute. The princess asked that every future statement protect Charlotte's privacy and avoid language suggesting conquest. Charles answered with a short written clarification. The king said the arrangement recognized direct family continuity and did not reduce the place of any member of the royal household. His words steadied the debate, but they did not end it. Camilla changed the tone herself. She attended a scheduled engagement wearing no sapphires and made no reference to the controversy. The queen's restraint was read as acceptance, not defeat. The world had delivered its judgment, but the final verdict would come inside the family, when Charlotte learned what the earrings truly meant and why they had caused such pain. The story ended not in a courtroom, a press office, or a confrontation behind palace doors. It ended with Charlotte seated between her parents as William opened a small archival box and Catherine placed Diana's photograph beside it. The sapphires remained safely stored elsewhere, but their meaning was finally brought home. No one spoke of victory, no one mentioned Camilla's family. Instead, a young princess was told that memory carries obligations, and that love must never be preserved by creating another generation of bitterness. William spoke first. He explained that the earrings had belonged to Charlotte's grandmother and would remain protected until she was old enough to understand their history. The prince wanted his daughter to know the woman behind the jewels, not only the beauty that had made them famous. William told her Diana had worn the sapphires during moments when she felt admired by millions yet deeply alone. Charlotte listened without interrupting. She understood only part of the pain, but she recognized the tenderness in her father's voice. Catherine then explained that inheritance did not make Charlotte more important than anyone else. It gave her responsibility. The princess said a family treasure could preserve love, but it could also wound people when used as proof of victory. Charlotte asked the question neither parent expected. Was Camilla angry with her? William answered immediately. The prince told her she had done nothing wrong and must never carry responsibility for choices made by adults. Catherine held her daughter's hand and said the disagreement had been settled. A handwritten note arrived the following morning. Camilla congratulated Charlotte on becoming the future guardian of an important family treasure. The queen consort wrote that some objects find their proper home through memory rather than rank. Her message carried no challenge, no hidden demand, and no attempt to reopen the dispute. Charlotte showed the note to Catherine. Later, the princess told William that those few lines had ended the personal conflict more effectively than another palace statement ever could. Charles learned about the message and quietly thanked his wife. The king knew their marriage still carried the pain of the announcement, but Camilla's acceptance allowed them to move forward without reducing Diana's place in the family. The verdict was final. Catherine protected the earrings. William defended their meaning. Charles made the decision permanent. Camilla chose not to prolong the wound. Charlotte inherited continuity, not revenge. Diana's sapphires would now carry memory without rivalry, inheritance without conquest, and a family legacy finally placed where it belonged, forever safe. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.